Hello again and welcome to DanWhiteBooks, the book review channel where we add insights into the worlds of literature for both those who do read and those who don't. In today's video I'll be starting a slightly new series with a focus on authors, and I'll be starting with the one I know best, and that is Mr. Stephen King. Today we'll be answering the question, should you read Stephen King? I'm hoping in this series to add a little bit of detail into the life of various authors and their past works, along with books I feel are significant. I have read many Stephen King books in my time. In fact, I could practically credit this man for having started my journey into literature in the first place. Without Mr. King, I very much doubt I would be even here making these videos. I feel most wannabe authors, particularly when they are younger, such as myself at that time, they go through a stage of first writing and then reading. For me, I started writing little pieces here and there, but I never felt they were much good. Then I discovered the greats and I learned so much more. To me, Stephen King can certainly be considered one of the greatest and most consistent writers of our age, but I can agree that he won't be for everyone. My nan, for example, wouldn't touch his work with a barge pole. Stephen King has been around for a very long time, having had his first book published back in 1974. If you are an author and find yourself particularly uninspired or disheartened, especially in regards to publishing your works, an interesting fact is that Stephen King's first work, Carrie, was actually rejected 30 times before it was published. In short, even if you're a great writer, it can be very hard to get your first start, so keep at it. Carrie is awkwardly one of the Stephen King books I have not read, although it is on my bookshelf. It is more of a short novel or novella as opposed to a fully fledged book, and it also has a movie adaptation which I'm told is particularly graphic. Again, I haven't seen that either, my apologies. I believe there has been a remake recently. Stephen King went on to publish many more books over the years and decades, with a huge selection being reproduced on the big screen, some good and some bad. The most notable of these was The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick and released back in 1980. It is considered by some to be his best work, although I'm sure that is a heavily debated opinion. So should you read Stephen King? If you love horror, there really is no debate. Well, there probably is. I shouldn't really say that. I'm sure some people do debate it. But to me personally, I think you just have to read Stephen King if you love horror. Stephen King is quite the master at evoking terror in things you otherwise wouldn't expect it from. His most iconic characters are morphed from things we see in everyday life. Let's take the well-known example from It, which is one of his greatest works. The simplified plot is that a clown called Pennywise is terrorizing a group of misfit kids. Although people do genuinely have a fear of clowns, I feel that Stephen King took that fear to a whole new level when It was released back in 1986. A fear of clowns called coulrophobia wasn't that mainstream. Stephen King took the appearance of a clown and made it very truly terrifying. Pennywise not only symbolizes a clown, but also a monster who changes its appearance to best petrify its victims. It is certainly for this reason why, as I've said, my nan would not wish to read this book. Child-eating clowns are not really her thing. And that brings me around to why Stephen King may not be for everyone. Point 1. His early work is gruesome, some particularly so. Pet Sematary and Cujo are not happy tales. While I didn't enjoy Cujo, I did like Pet Sematary. However, it is a dark book, probably one of the darkest I have read, and the ending is not that of a fairy tale. Stephen King even admits this, stating in a quote, "If I had my way about it, I still would not have published Pet Sematary. I don't like it. It's a terrible book, not in terms of writing, but it just spirals into darkness." And that it does, my dear reader. So if you do wish to avoid the grittiest of Mr. King's works, it may be best to leave Pet Sematary off your reading list. Let's discuss something else that King does well, something that is exemplified in his older works, and that is the development of characters in adolescence. King's real mastery is the fear he betrays through his younger characters and the connections they build with one another. It is this side to his writing that I love most, as it shows the resilience of children against that which they fear and the seemingly unbreakable bonds we hold when we are younger. Youth is a remarkably fleeting period, yet despite its length it holds the strongest of memory. You are ignorant about so many things and in a great many senses very carefree, yet you also discover so much. The friendships you build during this period of your life are, well, they feel truly unbreakable, but as I'm sure you and me know, we all change and people depart. King has a magic to the way he captures this time in life. When we are younger, we have theories about the world that are not real. They often become laughable as we become grown-ups. However, King subverts these beliefs, making monsters the very truest of realities in a time where Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy are supposed to be wandering around. The horror of Stephen King's work is that the darkest of entities truly do exist. While Santa Claus is a fantasy, a living, rotting lady in a bathtub is a reality. The things that shouldn't be true are, and only in the most uncomfortable and terrifying ways. In his later years, King has become more tame in his writing. The remarkable thing is that this writing is still of a very high calibre, so what you get is the feeling of two completely different genres in King's signature style of writing, with both being excellent works. This is a switch that I imagine most authors would not be able to do well, but at least from the pieces I have read, Stephen King has no problem. Works like Mr. Mercedes, Joyland, and even his latest book, Billy Summers, all lean more towards crime fiction. Mr. Mercedes is even part of a trilogy of works, so there's plenty from King to read, and even books that don't dive too much into the dark. I still have many of his books to read. There are 63 novels and 11 collections of short stories, and Mr. King, despite being 74 now, does not appear to be slowing down. He's still releasing, normally, at least one book a year, which is quite remarkable, really. So let's conclude. Should you read Stephen King? Yes, but if horror isn't your style, have a look around at some of his thriller or fantasy or even crime works. One of my favourite books, personally, by Stephen King is 11/22/63, which tells the tale of a time traveller trying to prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy. What is truly remarkable in this work is King's detailing of a bygone era. You feel like a time traveller yourself with the description of America in its golden age. And the character detail, there's so much more going on than that brief description of just someone trying to prevent an assassination of JFK. It goes so in depth, and it is a great book. It's fantastic stuff, and the attention to detail is second to none. If you like horror, certainly take a look at It and Misery, perhaps even Christine, although people have mixed views on that one. Misery is more of a psychological thriller, but it's certainly very gruesome. That used to be one of my favourite books of all time. Nonetheless, it's a great read, and of course, you may have heard of The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, both tales that started at the tips of Stephen King's fingers. And then we have The Stand, a book you may have noticed that I haven't commented on here. And I hate to say this, but that is a book that's been on my bookshelf for a very long time, and I'm still yet to read it. But this year will be the year where I tackle that book. It is a very big book, and I've been meaning to read it for some time. I feel in my 10 years of reading Stephen King, it is finally time I knuckled down with that one. My friends, thank you very much for watching this video. I am still reading 100 Years of Solitude. It is taking me longer than I expected. It is not quite the book I expected. If you've read that book, I'm sure you'll be aware why. But that will be coming up in a week or so. I'll get that book review done and tell you my thoughts on that one. Until then, have a very great time in whatever it is you do, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.